We were just driving through a neighborhood we'd never been to before. A random Tuesday afternoon, taking a different route home from the grocery store because of construction. That's when my 3-year-old son pointed out the window and said 5 words that changed everything. "This is where I died." Not, "I like that house." Not, "Can we live there?" "This is where I died." His voice was calm, matter of fact, like he was pointing out a McDonald's or a playground. But his eyes held a sadness that no 3-year-old should ever carry. And in that moment, sitting in my Honda Civic on Maple Street, I realized that everything I thought I knew about life, about death, about what's possible in this world, was about to unravel completely. My name is Michael, and this is the story of how my son Lucas opened a door to something I never wanted to believe existed. Lucas wasn't like other kids his age. While his friends at daycare played with trucks and superheroes, Lucas would sit quietly in corners, staring out windows with an expression that seemed decades too old for his face. He rarely cried. Even as a baby, he had this unsettling calm about him. "He's just a good baby," my wife Jennifer would say when people commented on how quiet he was. But I saw something else in Lucas's eyes. Recognition. Like he was constantly seeing things that reminded him of somewhere else. Someone else. The first sign that something was different happened when he was barely 2 years old. We were at my mother's house for Christmas dinner. She had hung mistletoe in the doorway between the kitchen and dining room, a family tradition going back decades. Lucas took one look at it and started screaming. Not the frustrated crying of a toddler having a meltdown. Pure, terrified screaming. "Get it down!" he sobbed, pointing at the mistletoe with a shaking finger. "Get it down! It makes people sick!" My mother quickly removed the mistletoe, but Lucas continued crying for another hour. "It makes people sick, Daddy," he kept repeating through his tears. "The plant makes people sick and then they go away forever." Jennifer and I exchanged confused glances. How does a 2-year-old know that mistletoe is poisonous? We had never told him about toxic plants. We barely let him play in our own backyard unsupervised. Maybe he saw something on TV? Jennifer suggested, later that night. But Lucas rarely watched television. And when he did, it was cartoons about talking animals, not documentaries about poisonous plants. The strange incidents continued as he got older. Lucas would refuse to eat anything with mushrooms, saying they made his tummy hurt before. When? He would panic if we left him alone in a room even for 30 seconds. "I don't like being alone," he would say. Something bad happens when you're alone. He had an irrational fear of stairs, not falling downstairs, which would be normal for a toddler. He was afraid of being pushed downstairs. "Be careful, Daddy," he would whisper every time I carried him upstairs to bed. "Hold on tight so nobody can push us." Push us? Who would push us? But the most unsettling thing was how Lucas talked about his other house. It started when he turned 3. "In my other house, the kitchen was yellow," he would say randomly while we were eating breakfast. "What other house, buddy?" "The house where I lived before, with Sarah." Sarah. We had never known anyone named Sarah. "Who is Sarah, Lucas?" My other mommy. She had long brown hair and she smelled like flowers, but she got sick. Jennifer would get upset when Lucas talked about Sarah. "I'm your only mommy," she would say, forcing a smile, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. "I know," Lucas would respond patiently. "You're my mommy now. Sarah was my mommy before. Before. Always before." Like his life was divided into chapters, before and now. The details about his other house became more specific as weeks passed. He described a 2-story house with blue shutters and a big oak tree in the front yard. He talked about a cat named Whiskers who slept on his bed. He mentioned a neighbor named Mr. Peterson who gave him candy on Halloween. But most disturbing were the things he said about Sarah. Sarah got really sick, he would tell us sadly. She couldn't get out of bed and she looked different. Her face got all skinny and her hair fell out. Cancer. He was describing someone dying of cancer. But how could a 3-year-old understand the progression of terminal illness? What happened? To Sarah, Lucas? She went to sleep and didn't wake up. Then I got sick too. You got sick? My tummy hurt really bad, like fire inside. Then I went to sleep too. Jennifer started researching online, looking for explanations. Past life memories in children, reincarnation, false memory syndrome. She showed me articles about kids who claim to remember previous lives, usually between the ages of 2 and 5. It's more common than you'd think, she said, though I could tell she was trying to convince herself as much as me. But Lucas has never been exposed to stories about death or previous lives. Kids pick up more than we realize. Maybe she was right. Maybe Lucas had overheard adult conversations or seen something on a screen when we weren't paying attention. Maybe this was just his way of processing the concept of mortality. But then came that Tuesday afternoon in October. We were driving home from the grocery store when construction forced us to take a detour through a neighborhood called Willowbrook. Old houses, established trees, the kind of area where families had lived for generations. We were stopped at a red light when Lucas suddenly sat up straighter in his car seat. "Daddy, look." I followed his gaze to a 2-story house on the corner. Blue shutters, massive oak tree in the front yard. "This is where I died," he said simply. The light turned green, but I couldn't move. Cars behind me started honking, but I was frozen. "What did you say, buddy?" "This is my other house. This is where I lived with Sarah." I pulled over to the curb, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. The house Lucas was pointing to matched every detail he had ever described. Blue shutters, check. Big oak tree, check. 2 stories, check. But houses like this weren't uncommon in our area. It could be a coincidence. "Are you sure this is the house, Lucas?" He nodded solemnly. "The kitchen window is right there." He pointed to a window facing the street. Sarah used to wave at me from there when I played in the yard. My mouth went dry. "And see that window upstairs? That was my room. Whiskers used to sit there and watch the birds." "Lucas, honey," Jennifer said from the passenger seat, her voice strained. "This is just a house that looks like the house you imagined." "I didn't imagine it, Mommy. I lived there." I looked at the house more carefully. It was well maintained but had an empty feel to it. No cars in the driveway. No signs of current occupancy. "Can we go look?" Lucas asked. "No, buddy. We can't just walk up to someone's house. Nobody lives there now," Lucas said matter-of-factly. "Nobody has lived there since Sarah and I went to sleep." A chill ran down my spine. That evening, after Lucas had gone to bed, I found myself researching the house. The address was 247 Willowbrook Lane. Property records showed it had been empty for over 3 years. The last residents had been Sarah Chen and her 3-year-old son Marcus. Sarah. Chen. Marcus Lucas. My hands were trembling as I dug deeper. Sarah Chen had died at age 28 after a battle with ovarian cancer. Her son Marcus had died 6 months later from complications related to a rare genetic condition that caused severe abdominal pain and internal bleeding. The dates made my blood run cold. Marcus Chen had died on March 15, 2019. Lucas was born on March 15, 2020, exactly 1 year later. To the day. I closed the laptop and sat in my kitchen, staring at nothing. This couldn't be real. Children don't just reincarnate into new families with all their memories intact. This was coincidence, imagination, some kind of psychological phenomenon I didn't understand. But when I looked up Sarah Chen's obituary, I found a photograph. Long brown hair, gentle smile, the kind of face that would indeed smell like flowers when she hugged you goodnight. And Marcus, 3 years old, dark hair like Lucas, the same serious expression I saw on my son's face when he talked about his other life. The obituary mentioned that Marcus loved his cat, Whiskers, and that he enjoyed playing in the big oak tree in their front yard. It mentioned their neighbor, Mr. Peterson, who had been like a grandfather to Marcus and was devastated by the family's loss. Every detail Lucas had ever mentioned, all of it real, all of it documented, all of it impossible. I didn't tell Jennifer what I had found, not yet. Instead, I drove back to Willowbrook Lane the next day during my lunch break. I sat in my car across from 247 Willowbrook Lane and tried to make sense of what I was seeing. The house looked exactly as Lucas had described it. The yellow kitchen window facing the street, the upstairs bedroom window where a cat might sit and watch birds, the oak tree with low-hanging branches perfect for climbing. An elderly man emerged from the house next door and began checking his mailbox. "Mr. Peterson?" I got out of my car and approached him. "Excuse me, sir. I hope you don't mind me asking, but do you know anything about the house next door?" He looked sad immediately. Tragic story. Sarah and little Marcus. Such a sweet family. What happened to them? Sarah got cancer when Marcus was just 2. Fought it for over a year, but he shook his head. That little boy never left her side. Even when she was at her sickest, he'd sit by her bed and read her stories. Lucas could barely read, but he would read to Jennifer and me, making up elaborate stories to go with picture books. After Sarah passed, Marcus went to live with his grandmother for a few months. But he got sick too. Some kind of genetic condition. The doctors said he'd probably had it his whole life, but it got worse. After his mother died, stress can make medical conditions worse in children, I said, though I felt like I was speaking through cotton. The grandmother couldn't handle losing both of them so close together. She moved away, left the house empty. It's been for sale ever since, but he shrugged. People around here know the story. Nobody wants to buy a house where a mother and child died so young. Did you know them well? His face lit up slightly. Oh, Marcus was my little buddy. I used to give him candy on Halloween. Help him climb that oak tree. He was such a serious little guy. Always seemed older than his years, you know. Always seemed older than his years. Just like Lucas. He had this thing about being alone, Mr. Peterson continued. After his mother got sick, he'd panic if she left him by himself for even a minute. And stairs. He was terrified of stairs. Said someone might push him. My knees almost gave out. He was convinced his mother's houseplants were dangerous. Wouldn't go near them. Kept saying they would make people sick. Sarah had grown mistletoe as a houseplant. Marcus had been right to be afraid. The strangest thing, Mr. Peterson said, lowering his voice like he was sharing a secret, was what he said the day before he died. What did he say? His grandmother called me, worried sick. Marcus had been telling everyone that he was going to go to sleep like Mommy, but that he would come back to a different family. I felt like the world was spinning. He said he had seen his new Mommy and Daddy, and they seemed nice. He said they had a yellow kitchen and a dog named Buddy. We had a golden retriever named Buddy. Our kitchen was painted yellow. Kids say strange things when they're sick, Mr. Peterson added quickly, but it gave his grandmother the chills. I thanked Mr. Peterson and walked back to my car on unsteady legs. Everything Lucas had ever told us about his other life was true. Every single detail. The house. The mother named Sarah. The cat. The neighbor. The illness. All of it real. All of it documented. And Marcus Chen had somehow known he was going to die and be reborn into our family. That night, I told Jennifer everything. She listened in stunned silence as I showed her the property records, the obituaries, the photographs. "This is impossible," she whispered, staring at Marcus Chen's picture. "I know. He looks exactly like Lucas. I know," What do we do with this information? I had no idea. Do you tell your 3-year-old that you've confirmed his memories of a previous life are accurate? Do you take him to see his old house, his old neighbor? Do you try to contact Marcus's grandmother and tell her that her grandson is alive and well, just in a different body? The decision was made for us the next morning. Lucas woke up crying, which was unusual for him. What's wrong, buddy? I had a dream about Sarah. She was sad because nobody remembers her. What do you mean? Her house is empty. Mr. Peterson is lonely, and Grandma Rose moved far away. Grandma Rose. Marcus's grandmother was named Rose Chen. Maybe we should go see the house again, I heard myself saying. Jennifer looked at me like I had lost my mind. Michael, no. We can't encourage this. What if it helps him process whatever this is? What if it makes it worse? But Lucas was already putting on his shoes. Please, Daddy, I want to say goodbye properly. Goodbye properly. As if he knew this might be his last chance to visit his previous life. We drove to Willowbrook Lane in silence. Lucas pressed his face against the car window as we approached the house. It looks so sad, he said softly, and it did look sad. Empty. Abandoned. Mr. Peterson was working in his garden next door. He looked up as we parked. Can I talk to Mr. Peterson? Lucas asked. Before Jennifer or I could stop him, he had unbuckled his seatbelt and was walking toward the elderly man. Hi, Mr. Peterson. The old man looked confused. Hello there, little fellow. Do I know you? Lucas smiled, the first genuinely happy expression I had seen from him in weeks. You used to give me candy on Halloween, and you helped me climb the big tree. Mr. Peterson's face went white. What did you say? It's me, Marcus. But I'm Lucas now. I rushed over, ready to apologize for my son's strange behavior. But Mr. Peterson was staring at Lucas with tears in his eyes. You have his eyes, he whispered. Exactly his eyes. I missed you, Lucas said simply. Is Whiskers okay? Whiskers died about 6 months after. Mr. Peterson trailed off. After I died, Lucas finished matter-of-factly. That's okay. Maybe Whiskers is with Sarah now. Mr. Peterson sat down heavily on his porch steps. This isn't possible. I know it's strange, Lucas said with the patience of someone much older, but I wanted you to know that I'm okay. I have a new family now, and they take good care of me. Marcus always said he would come back, Mr. Peterson said, more to himself than to us. Right before at the end, he said he would come back and visit me. I can't visit very much, Lucas said seriously. My new parents might worry. But I wanted to say thank you for being my friend. Mr. Peterson was openly crying now. You were my friend too, little man. You were the best friend an old man could have. Lucas hugged him then, this tiny 3-year-old, comforting an elderly man who was grieving a loss from years ago. Don't be sad anymore, Mr. Peterson. Death isn't scary. It's just like moving to a new house. We stayed for another 20 minutes while Lucas told Mr. Peterson about his new life, his new parents who loved him, his dog Buddy, his yellow kitchen where he ate breakfast every morning. Are you happy? Mr. Peterson asked. Very happy, Lucas said. But I still love Sarah, and I still love you. We love you too, buddy. Always will. As we were leaving, Lucas turned back one more time to look at 247 Willowbrook Lane. Goodbye, house, he said softly. Thank you for keeping Sarah and me safe. That was 3 months ago. Since then, Lucas has stopped talking about his other life. The memories seem to be fading, just like they do in most children who claim to remember past lives. He's becoming more like a typical 3-year-old, playful, silly, interested in trucks and cartoons. But sometimes, when he thinks nobody is watching. I catch him looking out our kitchen window with that same old soul expression, and sometimes I hear him talking to Buddy, our dog. Sarah would have liked you, Buddy. She loved all animals. Or, Mr. Peterson is probably working in his garden right now. I hope he's not too lonely. Last week, he asked if we could plant flowers in our yard. What kind of flowers, Buddy? The kind that smell really good, like Sarah used to smell. We planted jasmine and gardenias. Lucas helped, his small hands carefully patting soil around the roots. These will make the whole yard smell like hugs, he said contentedly. I still don't understand what happened to my family. How a 3-year-old can carry memories from another life. How consciousness can transfer from one body to another. How love can survive death and find its way back to the people who need it most. But I've stopped trying to rationalize it. Lucas is healthy and happy. He's our son, regardless of who he might have been before. And maybe that's enough. Mr. Peterson calls us, sometimes just to check on Lucas. They have become pen pals of sorts, though Lucas dictates his letters and I write them down. Tell Mr. Peterson that the flowers in our yard are blooming, Lucas will say, and tell him that Sarah says thank you for taking such good care of her roses. Sarah's roses? Mr. Peterson confirmed that he has been maintaining the rose garden at 247 Willowbrook Lane, even though the house is empty. She loved those roses, he told me. Seemed wrong to let them die too. Some connections transcend death. Some love is stronger than the boundaries between one life and the next. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, the people we've lost find a way to let us know they're okay. Lucas is sleeping peacefully as I write this. Tomorrow he'll wake up as my 3-year-old son, probably with no memory of Sarah or Marcus or the house on Willowbrook Lane. But tonight, I whisper a thank you to whatever force allowed Marcus Chen to choose our family for his next chapter. Because love doesn't end when life does. It transforms. It finds new homes. And sometimes, it gives us the privilege of caring for souls who have traveled further than we can imagine to find their way back to the people who matter most. So I ask you this. When a child points to a random house and says, "This is where I died," with the casual certainty of someone who lived through their own death. When they describe details of lives they never lived, people they never met, experiences they couldn't possibly have had. When they carry memories that belong to someone, else someone who died before they were born. Do you believe this is just the imagination of a developing mind? Or is there something more? Something that suggests consciousness is bigger than we understand? That love transcends the physical boundaries of life and death? That sometimes the people we've lost come back to us in ways we never expected? I used to think death was the end of the story. Now I wonder if it's just the end of a chapter. And maybe, if we're paying attention, we can recognize the souls who choose to continue their stories with us. The rest is just mystery. And maybe mystery is where the most important truths live.